Dukes of Hazzard star John Schneider.
Hi, Lou. Hi, Glenn. I have new.
On the war in Ukraine, and our exclusive interview with the commander.
You're listening to the official Reformed Stoic podcast, covering politics, philosophy, theology, conspiracy theories. I'm ready to get to the bottom of this life. Are you? Join Wolfgang, Sketty Squad, Purity Gang, as we strive to take dominion over this dying planet. I am Reformed Stoic, and this is my podcast. I'm Sketty, we're Getty, we're Sketty, Getty, who's Sketty, let's Sketty, we're Getty. I'm Sketty, we're Sketty, we're Getty, we're Sketty, we're Getty, I'm Sketty, Getty. Squidward, I'm Squidward, I'm Squidward. What's up? Let's go. Who's ready to carve a pumpkin tonight? Let's get it. Oh, this is a big old boy. That's right. You gotta get the pumpkin in the shot, baby. We're near the end of Smeartober. I'm getting way too cozy watching movies that are not horror movies. Horror movies reminded me how cozy regular movies are. I started out Smeartober strong. I think I started out Smeartober a little bit too strong, boyos. I went too hard. I smeared too hard, and I got burnt out. It's time. I gotta freaking slap myself, dude. Hold up. Let's get a good slap. Ready? EBZ slap. Bah! Da! Watch horror movies before Smeartober's over. Sorry about that. I'm sorry you had to witness that violence, but I need to watch more horror movies. I'm running out of time. The days are going fast. Let's go. 1 million horror movies tonight. All right. Anyway, I threw together a decent show for you guys today. Getting carved up. I'm definitely curious to try that bowl of cereal covered in sugar, dude. I think I'm going to try to have that for breakfast tomorrow. I want to have like a massive carb meal for breakfast. I've yet to do that yet. I just keep doing a little banana with honey on it. It's not enough. It's not enough. I have not seen the new Halloween movie. Maybe I'll watch that, but I feel like it's got to be classics, baby. Classics. Let's go. So I decided to try Hollywood news today. Just figured we'd see what's going on in Hollywood. And there's some stuff going on. So without further ado, let's get it rockin', boyos. News gang. You're listening to the Reformed Stoic News segment. Let's go! John Schneider. All right, let's kick things off with Fox Business. John Schneider rips narcissistic Hollywood culture for being afraid to have independent thought. It's afraid.
John Schneider is with me now. John, welcome to the program. Very good to see you. Why would Hollywood not support your movie?
Well, because they don't believe in content. I mean, I need to clarify something. It appears as if someone said that I approached Hollywood to get them to support this. I'm not that naive. I mean, I know that Hollywood would not support this. Hollywood does not really support anything independent because, like it or not, what Hollywood, I think in private understands, but their public persona is so narcissistic that they don't want anyone to know that really all they are is a line item in some group of billionaires' investment portfolio. You know, they really have no global importance, but they profess to.
Yeah.
So they're sorry. I'm sorry, Virginia. There is no Santa Claus.
What do you think is Hollywood's idea of patriotism? I know what yours is. I mean, it's the flag, it's America, it's values, it's the Constitution. What's Hollywood's idea of patriotism?
Well, Hollywood's idea of patriotism is being able to identify and to sell to a very persuadable and active and wealthy, or having a lot of disposable income, group of people. I mean, Hollywood is about sales. You can't blame them for that, but they're about the bottom line because they answer to another group. Okay, it's really just basically business. As soon as you start to hit Hollywood in the pocketbook, I mean, they don't really care about these issues they profess to care about. And all the celebrities, God bless their cute little souls, they owe their soul to the company store.
Got it.
So
okay.
They're afraid to have independent thought. They're afraid to say something that's outside of the consumer. It really is the consumer, outside of the consumer norm. These little fringe groups are very easy to sell T-shirts to. Okay. That's the bottom line.
Okay. How can I watch this?
In my opinion, of course, in my opinion.
That's fair enough with me. How can I watch it?
Well, it's very simple. Folks, go to todieformovie.com if you'd like to stream it right away, or go to todiefor.dvd.com and you can pre-order the DVD. The DVD does not come out until Orange Friday, which, in honor of the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard, we call the Friday after Thanksgiving Orange Friday. So, autonomy is the key. You must have autonomy.
Exactly. See,
and you must be willing to risk everything to have it.
But what I'm looking at here is a means of distribution, which means you cannot be cancelled. You can't be cancelled putting it out the way it is. Nope. You're autonomous.
Nope. We have our own distribution platform because I don't enjoy the hypocrisy of talking against the machine publicly and then secretly trying to make a side deal with Netflix.
Yeah,
I don't believe that. I believe that Netflix is a company that is a purveyor of just short of child pornography on occasion.
Damn.
They don't look at what they put out there. They only look at the bottom line. And again, this is a business show.
Got it.
I understand looking at the bottom line, but you've got to draw a line somewhere. I draw it at disrespecting our flag and all of those who have been willing to and have given their lives to provide us with freedoms that I know I certainly haven't paid a dime for. Right. I am forever in their debt.
And which I deliberately signed up for, and I'm happy I did. John Schneider.
And bless you. Thank you for your service, sir.
Thanks for being on the program, John, and good luck with To Die For. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
You got it.
Have a great day.
All right, so that is, in fact, the Dukes of Hazzard guy. My thoughts on this: Hollywood was definitely liberal a long time ago. They used to be very masterful at it. In fact, I feel like Tom Hanks, not necessarily anything with Tom Hanks, but I feel like Tom Hanks is like liberalism embodied, dude. Like, they're just so good at making some sort of like a liberal ending with Tom Hanks. Like The Green Mile. The Green Mile is kind of has like a racial thing going. I can't quite put my finger on it with Tom Hanks specifically, but I will say that Hollywood in the late 80s and the 90s, that was like the peak of being masterful. The same way I say that the Beatles, when I listen to the Beatles, I'm like, wow, I can tell that like no boomers could see through this. This was like it sounded very wise. The Beatles sounded very wise. If you're able to look past their illusion, you see that they're deceivers, but in their time, I don't think many people saw through the Beatles. Just like I don't think that many people saw through Hollywood in the mid-'80s, 90s, before then as well, but ultimately I can only speak for my time. And it's like Inception. If you've seen the movie Inception, they're trying to incept an idea in someone's head through a dream. 90s movies, 80s movies were masterful at, by the time you get to the ending, it's like, wow, like equality is everything, or wow, like women can vote too. Like I can't think of the best examples off the top of my head, but that time period in Hollywood, they were masterful at infusing liberal ethics into the ending moral plot of a movie. The moral payoff, just they were experts at it. And now it's becoming obvious. Now it's falling apart. The quality is becoming more and more mediocre. They're trying to spend less money by using CGI and computer-generated graphics, and basically the illusion is falling apart. The illusion has been falling apart in so many ways. Like, a big part of what woke people up, I'd say, is comfort. We used to be comfy. Our goy-slop trough and our brainwashing, it all used to be cozy. You know, we have fond memories of Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, Hollywood movies. Life started to become less cozy after, like, racial political tensions started to amp up. It's harder for guys to find women. Arcades started to become a little bit less cozy, and at the same time, the movies started to decline, and it's just a catalyst for a lot of people saying, wait a minute, Hollywood is fucking brainwashing. Wait a minute, this is a giant fucking prison. So, anyway, it's just a good little Hollywood-inspired rant I got there. We need to do a GoFundMe so people like this guy can produce independent films from Hollywood. I try to give new movies that sound good a shot every now and then. I feel like the last one was Joker. Joker is probably the best job they've done in a long time of getting people excited to, like, watch something new. And, you know, it's all right. I got it on DVD, but last time I watched it, I felt a little bit sick, dude. I feel like kind of a sicko when I'm watching that movie. It's like, dude, I don't really want to identify with this guy. This shit is dark. Okay. Let's keep the gravy train flowing. Mark Wahlberg joins growing list of celebs fleeing Hollywood. Fox News, let's get it.
Mark Wahlberg
I played pinball at the arcade last week. Whee! $1 per game, and it seemed rigged. Huge space in between paddles. Damn, used to be a quarter.
joins the growing list of celebrities who have left Los Angeles in recent years, including Katy Perry, Matthew McConaughey, and Chris Hemsworth. Now, Wahlberg and his family will call Nevada home. Here's why.
Moved to California many years ago to pursue acting, and I've only made a couple of movies in the entire time that I was there. So to be able to give my kids a better life and follow and pursue their dreams, whether it be my daughter as an equestrian, my son as a basketball player, my youngest son as a golfer, you know, this made a lot more sense for us.
To give my kids a better life, he said, Pete.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, Hollywood, it's like education. The higher education has a cartel. They defend themselves. They want to be the gatekeepers. Same thing with Hollywood. It's been the gatekeeper and the cartel. You had to go there in order to participate.
I can't believe how based what he just said. Look what this this guy. Dude, all these sweeties looking at this guy, and he just said the most based shit I've ever heard in a long time. It's like, you see, sweeties, at the top, Hollywood is like a cartel. Just like academia. Academia is like a cartel, and all these women are like, oh, yeah, okay. You see, sweeties, Hollywood is like a cartel, just like academia is like a cartel. Oh, shit. Base department.
That's all changed. I mean, you can create content, eminent content from anywhere, which means you get to choose your quality of life and where you want to be. And with what Democrats and Gavin Newsom have done to California, why would you want to be there if you don't have to be there with a bunch of other smug, you know, self-important people? Move where you want to be for a quality of life and create content. I mean, that's where we live in a whole new world when it comes to media these days.
That's right. And policies, Jackie, economic policies have real economic impacts.
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason why these guys are moving outside of Las Vegas, where the attraction of the policies there are very important and appealing to Mark Wahlberg. He's talked about building a big studio there, to your point, creating his content, and also a factory for a shoe company that he's launched. I mean, the reality is, for an entrepreneur, for anyone with any type of economic aspirations, Nevada is the place to be over California.
Oh, absolutely. And what's brilliant about it is that it's so close. If he has to go there, he just hops a plane. He can do a day trip or whatever he wants to do. But having said that, also, Nevada happens to be one of those states without a state personal income tax, right? We talk about Florida all the time, but there's that aspect of it. So I'm not surprised that he wants to start all of these ventures and whatnot. And then you add the quality of life into it, and it makes total sense. But these are celebrities. These are people who are fleeing policies that are not just obviously hurting them, but hurting everybody else. And they're sort of speaking up for everyone in the community.
Real.
And they make a statement like this. So I'm glad that they're doing it. And I'm glad that they're showing everybody that's okay. We saw it during the pandemic. We've seen it after. And there are consequences to these policies, Gavin Newsom. Yes.
Yeah, and your perspective, Kennedy, because you have such a Southern California presence as well as Oregon, where we've seen that sort of the opposite.
Yo, this chick is like sexy, man. She reminds me of somebody.
Magnetism effect. Obviously, New York as well.
Yeah, go Bruins, 4's up. Well, you're 6-0 UCLA Bruins, I'll take it. Yeah, because people like Mark Wahlberg, they're lucky because they can move to a different state. They've got the mobility. There are a lot of people who are stuck in California who can't move. They don't have the money to fight for the U-Hauls, which are few and far between, to get out of the state. But yeah, it used to be a place where the industry was concentrated. And to your point, it's now diffuse. It's not necessarily concentrated in one place. There's still a lot of great people in California who would love to live the California dream. It is an absolute nightmare now. I mean, everything from the bullet train to sanctioning doctors who have conversations that are non-traditional with their patients, they are now being censured by the California Medical Board if they dare have these conversations. And that is the overbearing nanny state. And they're lucky they got out. The thing about the pandemic, people went to other parts of the country and went, oh, there's so much here. There's so much to love. What am I doing on the coast?
Right. And there, the political elites, Kaylee, just see that dumpster fire behind them. They don't care because all they see are voters and their own political aspirations in the future. But to Kennedy's point, what is left behind, what is in rubble, are those minority communities, the vulnerable, those disadvantaged who can't rise up out of that. They are stuck there. I see it a lot actually in California in the Bay, where these homes that are so deeply steeped in equity, but the homeowners don't have the capital to renovate, to upkeep. So they literally look terrible, these big homes like in the Bay, because they're simply unable to afford to do anything other than stay there. They're paralyzed. And people like Governor Gavin Newsom doesn't seem to care.
Totally. You're overtaxed. You get no return on your investment. I mean, you go in the streets and you get mugged because crime is just horrible. You get COVID lockdowns, your church shut down, your place of business shut down. It's why you've seen the top states that you've moved to are Florida, Texas, North Carolina. The ones that have been moved away from are California, New York.
Boomers watch this and then just sell everything they own and just like flee the country without telling their kids anything. I'm not leaving a cent. As soon as a boomer turns this off, I'm like, honey, we got to get out of here. We're not leaving a cent to our kids.
Illinois, do they have a commonality? Yes, the commonality is blue. You know, we talk about defund the police. This is defunding liberalism, and I love it. People are marching with their feet. I'm not giving my tax dollars here. Defund liberalism, fund conservatism. Well done.
And we saw a lot of the congressional seats change, right, as those populations changed, and it's just going to increase.
We must believe in the conservative sweeties, you guys. They're out there. There's a conservative sweetie out there for you. You just got to improve yourself, buddy. Cringe. All right. Problem we're seeing here in Vegas is the people moving from California are voting in the same crap they're fleeing. If you move to Nevada, please vote and drive appropriately. Most of them knew what has been wrong with Hollywood for decades, but didn't do or say anything. Now, some are leaving just because they're losing money, but not because they have actual morals. Yeah, I mean, let's be real, dude. None of us really care about what goes on in Hollywood, but I guess the bottom line is that even some of these actors are just starting to say, like, wow, I gotta get the hell out of here, dude. These people are fucking loony, crazy. This shit is a cult. Why is Sonic recommended? Dude, I'm gonna watch like every video about American Psycho. That shit is great. I'm probably gonna have to get American Psycho on DVD. Mark Wahlberg. All right, let's keep on rolling. CAA cuts ties with Kanye West after anti-Semitic tirade. Hate incidents on the rise. So just a little something extra on Kanye. He's basically Hollywood, right? Or he used to be. This was 2 days ago. KTLA 5.
Hi, Lou. Hi, Glenn. I have new reaction from the Anti-Defamation League at this hour to flyers and banners that were anti-Semitic in areas of Los Angeles over the weekend. We are in Beverly Hills where one of those incidents occurred, and Beverly Hills PD tells us that they are investigating and trying to figure out who left anti-Semitic flyers. They say they found about...
Feds did it. Kanye says some stuff. And then a bunch of people, oh my gosh, where did all these flyers come from? It's got to be like some damage control, dude. Every single aspect of the COVID agenda is, oh, yikes. And they got a Satan star.
25 in driveways in this area of Sunset and Benedict Canyon Drive, also reporting there is no threat to the community. Also in areas of West LA, a city council candidate reporting he and his neighbors woke up to anti-Semitic flyers at their homes. And on Saturday, social media users posted photos from the 405 freeway where anti-Semitic signs could be seen on an overpass. A small group of people appeared to hang the flags, which echoed a sentiment by rapper Ye, who, of course, we know is Kanye West. West has come under fire for anti-Semitic comments on social media and in broadcast interviews recently. The Anti-Defamation League accusing a hate group that they've been tracking for the banner and some of the leaflets in the LA area, saying their aim is to provoke a response. Listen.
What we urge is not to give these propagandists the oxygen and the attention they seek. We condemn them. We all should gather together to condemn them. But please, please do not repost on social media imagery of these flyers, giving these people what they want, which is more attention.
They just posted it on the news.
Even more scary is the way in which hate groups like this one have now leveraged the comments by Kanye West.
And pressure is mounting on Adidas to end its business relationship with Kanye West. The LA Times reports CAA, the prominent Hollywood talent agency, has already stopped representing West amid that growing call to boycott the rapper. Balenciaga, JP Morgan, and The Gap have also reportedly recently parted ways with the rapper. A local ADL LA official confirming to me that the ADL's chief executive had a series of conversations with senior Adidas executives over the weekend to discuss Ye, calling the company's response, quote, insufficient. Now, Kim Kardashian, look at this. She, of course, shares children with Kanye West and has been splitting with him. She's distancing herself, posting hate speech is never okay or excusable. I stand together with the Jewish community and call on the terrible violence and hateful rhetoric towards them to come to an immediate end. We're also hearing from LA County District Attorney George Gascon, who posted, we cannot tolerate the anti-Semitism that was on full display on an LA freeway. White supremacy is a societal cancer that must be excised. This message is dangerous and cannot be normalized. I stand with the Jewish community in condemning this disgusting behavior. Back out here live, the ADL tells me that people can go to adl.org for more information on their campaign to pressure Adidas. And we'll continue following this. But for now, that's the latest live here in Beverly Hills. I'm Lauren Lister. I'll send it back to you.
Man, I still think Kim Kardashian is hot. I had a dream that I hit that, guys. Woo! It was spicy, just the way I like it. Yep. Yeah, I guess you could say that I hit that in my dreams. Malcolm X said the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. Media has the power to influence minds, ideas, behaviors, and attitudes of the masses. Yeah, Kanye's taking a hit for this, guys. Kanye is losing like billions of dollars of deals, and George Floyd's family is going after him for a $250 million lawsuit. He's under fire, man. At least that's how it appears. Fetty. So it sounds like Handsome Truth is behind the signs. Basically a honeypot, dude. They get the eager kids to like print the signs and go post it everywhere, but the idea likely glows. Did you know that ideas glow in the dark? I'm on TV talking like it's just you and me. The awesome power of Tay Voodoo. What? Real life episode of South Park. There's nothing disgusting about what he is saying. Yikes, I guess. I don't know. I'm a neutral, baby. We're neutral, baby. I doubt Ye even needs CAA now. Everyone knows who he is now. Why would he need a talent agency? Yeah, that's the thing, man. Kanye made it to the top. He made it to the top, and now he's trying to use his platform to get it rolling. All right, let's get 4 minutes out of this article. How bad would a recession be for Hollywood? Variety. This came out today. To borrow a phrase from poet Carl Sandburg, a sustained economic slowdown appears to be creeping into the U.S. on little cat feet. Everyone from Jeff Bezos to Gwyneth Paltrow is talking about the likelihood of a deepening recession, with the Amazon founder advising Twitter followers on October 19th to batten down the hatches, and the Goop CEO confessing late-night worries about the economic outlook a few days earlier. Technically, the U.S. economy entered recession territory mid-year following the second straight quarter of decline in gross domestic product. But the economy has rallied in the past following such declines, leading some to argue we aren't yet in a recession. The glass half-full crowd points to low unemployment even amid rising inflation as an indicator we aren't in such bad financial straits. What about my millionaires? Somebody think about the Hollywood millionaires. A key signal will arrive October 27th when the Department of Commerce releases its preliminary report on third quarter GDP activity. The financial slowdown comes at a perilous time for Hollywood, already grappling with the high price of producing content for streaming services and a theatrical market that has yet to recover from the pandemic. The question on many observers' minds: how bad will the recession get for the entertainment industry? As consumers have less money to spend on discretionary items, Hollywood will surely have to adjust, especially given the recent direct-to-consumer building boom. There are indications that cord cutting could accelerate and consumers will ditch some streaming service subscriptions as they feel the pinch in their wallets. With rising interest rates, media companies are going to need to make hard choices about what they prioritize, where they invest, and where they find cost savings, says CJ Banga, principal for tech, media, and telecom customer transformation consulting at PwC US. In many cases, that work has already started. Warner Bros. Discovery has promised to find $3 billion in savings as it labors under a mountain of debt. This week, telegraphing it would write down between $3.2 billion and $4.3 billion in pre-tax restructuring charges related to the mega company's merger, while Netflix cut back on programming, spending, and instituted layoffs after its shares plunged following a weak earnings report last April. We were already going through a severe contraction even before inflation and recession hit, says Tom Noonan, a professor of Oscar winner Crash and a lecturer at UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television. Big, bloated companies may use this as an excuse to do more cutting, but the process was already happening. Advertising, as always, is a key economic bellwether, but the yo-yo market of the past few years has upset the usual forecast models. Standard Media Index, a tracker of ad spending, has clocked declines in year-over-year U.S. ad spending since June. Interpublic Group CEO Philip Karkowski told Wall Street analysts last week that advertisers have been getting nervous about the quarter ahead and urging ad buyers to proceed cautiously with their campaigns. Our base case in the U.S. is still unclear as to whether we get a recession or how deep it is. My Hollywood millionaires! All right. All right. Let's move on to Ukraine, Russia, Putin. I labeled it Putin news, but yeah, what's going on with the conflict overseas? It's about time we got caught up. ABC News, Ukrainian general on Putin's nuclear threat. We are and should be worried. Fear hype. Stay afraid, sheep.
The latest on the war in Ukraine and our exclusive interview with the commander of the Ukrainian ground forces who's beaten back Russian troops in some of the biggest battles of the war. He's warning about Vladimir Putin's nuclear threats as we hear more disturbing rhetoric out of Moscow this morning. Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell starts us off. Good morning, Ian.
Morning, George. More dire warnings coming from the Kremlin. Russian Defense Minister Shoigu speaking to Defense Secretary Austin and others, alleging that Ukraine is ready to detonate a dirty bomb. Meanwhile, the head of Ukrainian ground forces sitting down for an exclusive interview about how they're managing to not just hold Russia's military back, but to defeat them for now. Overnight, America, Britain and France denouncing Russia's claims that Ukraine's planning to detonate a so-called dirty bomb. Russian state media making the same claims, saying it would be blamed on Russia. A dirty bomb is a conventional bomb laced with radioactive material. Russia's defense minister urgently calling his counterparts in London, Paris and Washington to warn them of the alleged plot, though offering no evidence. But in a joint statement, the three countries saying, we all reject Russia's transparently false allegations. But the claims are raising fears because Russia has repeatedly used this tactic of falsely accusing Ukraine of planning attacks that it's about to carry out itself.
How are you?
Earlier, I sat down for an exclusive interview with a man in charge of Ukrainian ground forces, Colonel General Alexander Syrsky.
How worried are you? How worried should all of us be about Putin's nuclear threats?
I must agree with you that we are and should be worried, and I do believe that such a threat really exists, and we have to take it into account.
Look at this absolute Chad just rocking his hairline, baby. He's just going down with the ship like a fucking Chatty. I salute you, good sir.
Syrsky gave Russia its first major defeat, defending the capital at the start of the war, forcing Putin's men to retreat. He's now leading the major counter-offensive here in Kharkiv region, already liberating thousands of square miles of territory.
We create the conditions under which we can make the enemy lose confidence, get nervous, start taking losses, and abandon their positions.
General Syrsky graduated from the oldest Russian military school in the 1980s, studying Soviet battlefield tactics he says Russia's still using today.
A rather basic question, but I think an important question. Are you winning this war?
Of course I think we are winning, because first and foremost, we are winning mentally and we have success on the front line. We understand that this war is about survival of our people and our state, and this is why we have no other option but to win.
For now, Putin is losing the land war, but he's responded with mass mobilization at home and mass strikes in Ukraine, targeting the country's power plants, leaving civilians in the cold and dark with winter rapidly approaching.
General Syrsky, how do you end this war? How do you achieve peace?
You know how we say here in Ukraine, we long for peace, but after our victory. Those are quite simple words, but have profound meaning.
Give me your vision of how this physically ends, what that looks like.
It's when Ukrainian flags will fly all over our borders, including Crimea.
Well, we now have some Kremlin reaction this morning. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov talking about what he says is the West's distrust of Russia's warning about these so-called plans to create a dirty bomb, saying that the threat is obvious. It's up to them to believe it or not. Ukraine's foreign minister simply warning Russia...
Man, this old guy has some rockin' hair, dude. You're mogging me pretty hard there, buddy.
Often accuses others of what they plan themselves. Robin?
As always, our thanks to you, Ian.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News.
All right. Well, more of the same. It sounds like they say Putin's losing the ground war, but he did some strikes, and we're doing nuke tests. Ooga booga booga, we're scary. Stay scared. This doesn't look like it's going to end well for anyone. Yeah, everybody's been saying that kind of, this doesn't look good. I'm really worried about this. I don't know about this, dude. 6 months from now, literally nothing will have happened, and we'll all feel like we've been robbed somehow. I think after everything blows over, the war, COVID, everything. There's going to be like 5 years from now, and it'll just be like, there's no big war, there's no big COVID anything, there's no civil war, and I'm fucking poorer and everything's more expensive, and I feel like I got robbed. Or we're all going to die, one or the other. It is common among liars to accuse others of what they're lying about. Dude, like Scar in The Lion King. That scene at the end of The Lion King where Scar is like bringing up how Mufasa died. It's like, you haven't told them your little secret. That scene's really intense, dude. Like holding a lie over his head. That was like some narcissistic shit. Like holding this thing over Simba's head to try to like keep his reputation ruined. Anyway, that came out of nowhere. They don't really know what the accused is thinking of. They only have their own universe to draw upon for thoughts. Like Scar. It's just like Scar. Strange game. The only winning move is not to play. So I guess nobody thought that you wouldn't know until people started getting really sick unless they're constantly testing. What? I truly hope this war will end soon. Hang tenny. When all else fails, they take you to war. Just listen at the commander's words and look at his eyes. Both tell another story. Exactly like The Lion King. Let's go. I low-key want some stuff to go down. I want some stuff to go down too. Like me to make money and get a girlfriend and be happy and have the gang win at life. Just get it. That's what I want to go down. All of us to get girlfriends and to make it and to learn how to be positive and to be Chads. Let's go. Romania's Minister of Defense. Oh, this is way too long. No. They want us to be worried. Yep. Whoever is reading this, I want you to know that you are not far behind in your journey. Keep putting in the work. I want you to strengthen your spirit to the point it becomes strong enough to split atoms. Stay strong. 2023 will be your year. Let's go. Thanks, buddy. I don't know if atoms exist, though, there, little buddy. Putin looks on as Russian drills simulate massive nuclear strike. CNN. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking they just want us to be afraid, you guys. I feel like it's never going to happen. Nothing burger.
New this morning, the Kremlin announcing President Vladimir Putin is leading its annual training exercises today, and that those drills include launching intercontinental ballistic and cruise missiles. According to the Russian defense minister, the training exercise is intended to simulate a massive nuclear strike in response to an enemy nuclear attack. CNN's Nick Robertson joins us now from Kyiv. Barbara Starr is at the Pentagon. So, Nick, first to you. We know the Pentagon has stressed these exercises are routine. The U.S., though, obviously keeping an eye on them. What do these drills actually entail?
Well, the effect is, so I get to the effect first, the effect is a large degree of saber rattling, and that's exactly what President Putin wants to achieve, and that's why he's there overseeing it, and that's why we're hearing such strong language coming from Sergei Shoigu, the defense minister in Russia. They entail what Russia is trying to prove to itself, that it hasn't been able to prove on the battleground here in Ukraine, that it's actually battle ready, that it can launch these missiles in an offensive capability when it so chooses. It's been using some of these weapon systems in
a Jewel Rancid bomb. That does not sound good.
Ukraine already, but this is designed to be a much bigger show, and of course it comes just a couple of weeks after NATO had its own nuclear weapons drills and exercises, which again are routine. President Putin is posturing himself at the moment to give the impression that he creates a big threat, that he is potentially on the verge of using nuclear weapons. A couple of hours ago, I sat down with Ukraine's military intelligence chief, however, and he believes that Putin doesn't actually want to use nuclear weapons, that really all he is trying to achieve at the moment is pressuring and scaring the West into pressuring Ukraine into some sort of peace negotiations, which of course Ukraine is not prepared or ready for, and neither is its Western allies. That's what's going on at the moment when Putin takes the helm overseeing these military drills.
And that seems to make a lot more sense, doesn't it, on a number of levels. So, Barbara, all of this, of course, happening as President Biden is reacting to some of that pressure in some ways, warning Putin not to use a tactical nuclear weapon. What more do we know about?
Oh shit, this girl's at the Pentagon. I feel like I don't remember like ever listening to anyone from the Pentagon speak. Come to think of it, I feel like I don't really know that much about the Pentagon, bro. It wouldn't be a bad time. Maybe we'll do a special on the Pentagon on Friday. Let's go deep on the Pentagon on Friday. Figure out what the hell the Pentagon's about, the origins of the Pentagon. Pentagon! One of the things I forgot to learn about, because it's always kind of been right in front of our face, you know. There's been a pretty consistent just reminders about the Pentagon ever since 9/11. We heard a lot about the Pentagon since 9/11, but I never really got curious about them yet. Let's Pentagon it on Friday.
The U.S. response both publicly and privately.
Well, the U.S. has been very public in its warnings to Russia about this nuclear rhetoric. There's a good deal of concern about it, of course. I think there is some thinking that, yes, it is, just as Nick said, part of Putin's deterrent strategy. He's changing the conversation. But President Biden just yesterday gave one of his strongest warnings.
The Pentagon launches missiles into itself. It's like you press a button, blow up the own. Did I do it? You did it, buddy. Good job.
To date.
Let me just say, Russia would be making an incredibly serious mistake if we're to use a tactical nuclear weapon. I'm not guaranteeing you that it's a false flag operation yet. Don't know. But it would be a serious, serious mistake.
So whether it's Russian rhetoric or Russian intentions, the U.S. clearly watching this whole entire situation with all of its available intelligence assets, satellites, aircraft, reconnaissance, anything it can without moving, of course, directly into Ukraine or Russian airspace, trying to keep up with the latest intelligence about what Russia might be doing. And even the NATO Secretary General today also issuing a warning to Russia, don't do it. Erica?
Barbara Starr, Nick Robertson, appreciate it as always. Thank you both. Joining me now to discuss further, former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, John Herbst. Ambassador, good to see you this morning. You know, it's interesting, just picking up where we left off there with both Barbara and Nick. You know, Nick talking about this is an effort, of course, by Russia to prove that it's battle ready on the same day that the Kremlin is saying, yeah, it's true, we're having some equipment issues when it comes to the Russian army, and that this also is about putting pressure on the West. What is your level of concern this morning?
Look, we have to take seriously the possible use of nuclear weapons by Putin. But the notion he would actually use it is actually rather remote. He's talking about nuclear weapons because his conventional military force is failing in Ukraine. As the Ukrainian military intelligence chief said, he's trying to frighten the United States and the West to put pressure on Ukraine so that they will give Russia Ukrainian territory as part of a deal. And the Ukrainians won't accept that, because Russians are committing vast war crimes on Ukrainians. A senior Russian official on Russian TV said, we will make the Ukrainians Russian, and if they don't want to become Russian, we will kill them. So the Ukrainians have no choice. And we should not be intimidated by Moscow's nuclear threats, and the Biden administration has handled this well over the past month.
So you say they're handling it well over the past month. I would say the president is saying, and other world leaders are saying exactly what you would expect them to say, right? Which, you know, and those are words that Putin's going to do whatever Putin wants to do. It certainly feels that way. But I wonder if is there anything or anyone else who you think could actually have an impact on any of Putin's decision-making going forward? Could it be China?
Without a doubt, American resoluteness is the most important factor. But you're absolutely right. China does not want Putin to use nukes. This would cross a barrier which could be dangerous for the entire world. And we suspect that China is conveying that to Putin. India too should be doing that. I think we are using diplomacy to pull others who might have some influence with Putin to convey that message. But again, the most important point is American strength.
So American strength, American resoluteness. I wonder whether any of that took a hit this week with this letter signed by 30 progressive Democratic lawmakers here in the U.S. The letter was then rescinded, but in many ways the damage was already done because it was out there pushing for a diplomatic resolution. Now, what we're hearing from lawmakers is, this wasn't supposed to be released. We didn't know it was going to come out. Some say they signed it June 30th or back in July. I wonder, though, does any of that matter in light of what has become a very public gaffe and what it could mean for support?
I think that was an unfortunate incident. The letter was actually rather naive, and it plays Putin's game because, again, Putin's losing on the battlefield, so he's trying to scare everybody that he's going to use nuclear weapons. And this went along with that. Again, and not recognizing the tremendous war crimes that Russia's committing on Ukrainians for merely being Ukrainians. It's unfortunate. It's not helpful. I don't think it's very important. And it's a good thing that they rescinded it.
Are you concerned heading into winter? We've talked a lot in the last couple of weeks as we've seen this more blatant targeting and even admission of targeting of infrastructure, of civilian targets by Russia in Ukraine. We know what a challenge this is going to be heading into winter for heating, also for communications, as we know. There's also a significant energy crisis brewing, already starting, in Europe, in the West. Those coming to a head, could part of this nuclear posturing as well by Putin be a distraction tactic? So we're not talking about what could be coming, because that too could impact broader support for the war.
The tough winter that you just described is coming for us, even more for Europe, and most of all for Ukraine. But I was in Berlin last week. I met with senior officials. I believe that cooperation between the US and the EU in finding alternate energy sources and arrangements made within the EU to parcel out the pain so that no one is overly damaged by this means that Europe will get through the winter without easing their policy opposing Russian aggression. As for Ukraine, they will take the hits on infrastructure that Putin will deliver them, because as a senior Ukrainian official from the Kherson region, who was taken prisoner by the Russians, told me 2 weeks ago, it is far better to live under Russian shelling than under Russian occupation because of those war crimes. So Ukraine will get through the winter because they have no choice but to win. Otherwise, they face, literally, extinction as Ukrainians, not as people, but if they're willing to give up their nationality, fine. If not, they face extinction.
Extinction. Dick Cheney would be interesting to look into as well. I remember hearing way back in the 9/11 days about a lot of people speculating that Dick Cheney kind of pulled the strings, even though George W. Bush is a skull and bones and his dad was former president, skull and bones, former CIA director. But two heads are better than one. They want to steal all the world's gas and bury it. A state of war only serves as an excuse for domestic tyranny. Ego doesn't make you a hero. History books will see him as the little man who brought Russia back a century. Putin's a little man. He brought him back a century. I don't think Putin is scaring us as much as he's pissing us off. Russia's the guy that gets in a fight, then starts screaming for police when he starts losing. Do you think Russia has the skill to launch a nuke without blowing it up on the launch pad? Senior Russian military officers could be heroes if they unite and have a successful 21st century Operation Valkyrie. Give Putin his Valkyrie moment. Putin isn't tall enough to reach the nuclear button anyway. Damn, with the short jokes. Short man can't win. Amazing how one man can cause so much misery. Literally Putler. Greetings from Finland. Not scared of winter or very likely power shortages. Not saying it's pleasant, but we are prepared. Be prepared. That was a song in The Lion King. The people that put out that letter need to be slapped and made to regret their mistake. Loudmouth in a bar bragging how tough he is gets punched out. A lot of people are saying that. Sounds like Russia is losing steam. That's what a lot of people are making it sound like. Sitting at a big round table all by himself. Tough guy. Big man. Tough guy. He knows jujitsu, guys. Oh, the little man knows jujitsu. He's a little jujitsu man. Oh, how adorable. This is a drill they hold literally every year, as do we. Smirnov. When I read CNN comments, I actually want Putin to nuke us. That comment doesn't sound very American there, buddy. You're not using a VPN right now, are you? Okay, let's move on. So we got 9 minutes alone with this article from Time Magazine. CNN, Time Magazine, must be our buddies. What the West should do if Putin uses a nuclear weapon. This came out today. As Vladimir Putin becomes more desperate in Ukraine, watching his killed in action tally rise weekly alongside the butcher's bill of destroyed equipment, his thoughts will turn to other options. We've already seen him launch a significant bombing campaign directed against critical Ukrainian infrastructure, primarily the electric grid, just in time to threaten civilians with blackouts and freezing home temperatures. Like his conventional ground attack, that tactic will likely fail, just as the British responded with high morale and determination to the Nazi terror bombings of World War II. The Ukrainians will continue to coalesce around their inspirational leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, and above all, continue to defend their homeland. Once Putin realizes he cannot win with air power and terror bombings, he may consider seriously using a tactical nuclear weapon or a radioactive dirty bomb. What should the West do if he chooses to do so? This is a real possibility. A few days ago, in a strange move, the Russian Minister of Defense, Sergei Shoigu, reached out to several NATO counterparts, including the U.S., United Kingdom, and France. He laid out a preposterous lie, purporting to have evidence that the Ukrainians were preparing to use a dirty bomb soon. These dirty bombs are simply large explosives combined with radioactive material. They scatter the radioactivity around a large area, although the lethal effects are actually relatively small. The NATO ministers correctly pushed back strongly, including issuing a joint statement denying such a scheme existed. This smells like the Kremlin laying the tracks for a classic false flag. Oh, a classic false flag, huh? False flags are classic. Only in other countries. It's a conspiracy theory to say they happen here. Classic false flag operation, meaning they would detonate such a weapon, then point an accusing finger at the Ukrainians. The Russians have done exactly that with their Syrian partners, using chemical weapons against their opponents, but accusing the Syrian rebels and the U.S. of having planted them or even of having used them actively themselves. You know what's funny is I heard that some of the chemical attacks in Ukraine were actually false flags used by our CIA, because basically Ukraine is the United States puppet government, and then we blamed it on Russia. So, yeah, it just sounds like something that people do. Sounds like false flags happen all over the place. Additionally, Putin continues to muse in public on using a tactical nuclear weapon, an even more serious device that can be dialed up to destroy city blocks and large troop formations. Russian hard-right commentators routinely encourage him to do so. Should Putin become desperate enough and pressured enough by his own far right, who demand far stronger pressure on Ukraine and defiance of the West, to use a radioactive weapon, either a dirty bomb or a tactical nuclear weapon, the West should respond forcefully and immediately along these lines. No, CIA would never do that. They're our buddies. Oh, I mean, and it's getting to a point where I can understand why intelligence lies. It's about being a team player. And it sounds like something a spook would say to me. You're not really a team player, are you there, Sonny? Why don't you be a team player, bucko? Publicize and condemn the Russian use of nuclear weapons, the first use since the Second World War. Okay, so this is what Time magazine says the West should do in a nuclear attack. So condemn the use of nuclear weapons. Provide incontrovertible evidence that the radiation is the result of Russian activity. Demand Russian expulsion from the UN Security Council, going through the General Assembly to overcome a presumed Russian veto in the UN Security Council. Push China, India, and other major swing voter nations to condemn Putin and cut off trade with Russia. Confiscate all Russian financial assets in Western hands, around $300 billion, for the express use of reconstructing Ukraine. By the way, this article is talking about how they feel like Putin is going to use a false flag dirty bomb against himself. I mean, it sounds like we keep saying he's going to use a nuclear weapon. Maybe we're going to pretend that Putin used a nuclear weapon when he didn't really. Oh, the possibilities. Whee! Deliver MiG-29 Soviet-era fighter aircraft, currently in the hands of the Poles, to the Ukrainians immediately, as their pilots already fly them very capably. In this scenario, the U.S. would immediately backfill with F-16s to Warsaw. Consider giving the Ukrainians U.S. F-16 fighter aircraft, particularly some of the early models. These are relatively simple to fly, very lethal in both air-to-air scenarios and in air-to-ground attacks. The U.S. would train a cadre of Ukrainian pilots, probably taking them to Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany. Meistersfrasch. Ramstein, everybody. Increase the supply of advanced surface-to-air defensive military systems, missile systems, probably older Hawk systems, but also the modern Patriot, wide area, relatively easy to train to operate, and Iron Dome, developed jointly with Israel, excellent point defense systems to be used around big population centers and critical infrastructure. Strongly consider putting up a NATO no-fly zone in support of the Ukrainian air forces, using NATO jets operating out of Polish and German bases. Strongly consider a response is the world of cyber, particularly going after Russian military capabilities aggressively. Directly and overtly target the Russian Black Sea Fleet and provide Ukraine with the intelligence and long-range cruise missiles to sink a significant number of high-value warships. Du hast. All of these measures should be communicated now to Putin, so he understands the reaction to his use of radioactive weapons would swift and formidable. So he understands the reaction to his use of radioactive weapons would be swift and formidable. Ha ha! An editing error in the Time magazine. Wow. They do have a weakness. One thing we should not contemplate is responding in kind with NATO nuclear capability. Although the alliance has such means and recently conducted its annual exercises demonstrating this ability, avoiding further nuclear escalation must be avoided at all costs. The war in Ukraine is going badly for Putin, but he must understand it will go even more badly, exponentially so, if he reaches for the lever to use a radioactive nuclear device of any kind. All right, well, it sounds like Time magazine has thought a lot about this. They think about a lot of stuff. I have to utilize the bathroom, so I leave you with funny cow videos. I'm gonna high test it.
Woo! Oh, hell!
She did it the other day.
And she'll open it all the way then. And get there.
Before I started recording, she opened it and stuck her head in. Look.
Oh my gosh! We just let her walk in. This little brat.
Ooh, righty. Good boys. All right, guys. Well, pretty standard stuff today. I'm thinking Friday we're going to do Pentagon and Dick Cheney. That'll be interesting. Dick Cheney and the Pentagon on Friday. I'm going to make a note on that so I remember. Well, guys, for the end, we have covenant theology and dispensationalism. These are opposites. I know that I follow covenant theology, not dispensationalism. Let's go ahead and take a look here, shall we? A mooey. Let's read a couple of comments on the previous topic first. All our leaders do is project. That's their main policy. Accuse their enemy of what they are doing first. We've seen it in the election with old Joe. Yeah, I think I'm starting to see that as well. That idea was at the beginning of the war, and Poland was stopped by the U.S. Smear Crane. Exactly. Played pretend war as child. Grew to find much of war is pretending. How does that song by the Foo Fighters go? Yes, sir. I'm a pretender. Living a linear. I don't really remember that one so well. Yeah, I'm a pretender. These points are soy. Well, leave it up to Time Magazine to soy it. All right, let's get it. Covenant theology and dispensationalism. Stand to reason is the channel here.
I'd like to talk for just a moment about the difference between covenant theology and dispensational theology. Now, these terms might not be familiar to you, and that's okay. And if they are familiar to you, I don't want you to expect a thoroughgoing theological characterization here, because I'm not in a position to give that. But I do think there's a practical distinction that is important that I can talk about here that does reflect my own convictions. I am Reformed with regards to my soteriology, and characteristically, those who are Reformed, that is, believe in sovereign grace, that salvation is monergistic, it's an act of God alone on us. It's not synergistic, like we're both acting together and we come together, and between the two of us, we get ourselves saved. But I am not Reformed in a confessional sense, because generally the bigger picture of Reformed theology entails covenant theology. And there's a huge difficulty that I have that relates to the distinction between these two belief systems that is central, okay? The hinge pin, one might say, in dispensational theology is the role that Israel plays as a nation in the outworking of God's ultimate plan. And according to dispensationalism, Israel as a nation still maintains a unique identity in God's purposes in the outworking over the long term, even though in the New Covenant there is neither Jew nor Greek at the foot of the cross. There is no distinction with regards to the issue of salvation. No question about that. Can there be a distinction, though, in the broader outworking of God's purposes? And I think there is a distinction. I don't think that God chose Israel in the sense that those physical descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are saved, rescued in the kingdom, in the final sense, simply because they're Jewish. And this was a misconception that the New Testament teachers all had to deal with. John the Baptist says, don't think that you can avoid the coming wrath because you're children of Abraham. He said, God is capable of raising from these stones children of Abraham. Instead, he called them to repentance, a different way of thinking, a different frame of mind, a different way of living, in order to qualify for the things that God promised for Israel but had to be received by faith. Jesus ran into the same problems, Paul, the rest of them, the same difficulty, okay? So being chosen doesn't mean salvation. It means being selected for a certain purpose, and that purpose was to bring salvation to the world through Israel, and hopefully members of the chosen vehicle for salvation would themselves benefit from that salvation, but many of them, arguably most of them until now, have not. Okay? The question then becomes, is God done with the nation of Israel now that the new covenant is here? Now there's no distinction between Jew and Greek, at least in one sense, salvation. So that pretty much tells the story. And in my view, in my understanding of the scripture, that's not all the story. Even just the other day, I was reading in Jeremiah, and you can find this all through the prophets. There are consistent, clear references to promises of a national restoration for Israel, on which the nations will come to Israel for spiritual insight. The Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures, actually seem to have more of an emphasis on kind of a nationalized or globalized geopolitical restoration than it does on individual restoration to God. Now, both are important, and clearly the New Covenant focuses on the individual, but it does not disqualify the other. That seems to me those promises are still in place. And when God told Abraham in Genesis 12 and then renewed it in Genesis 15, that he was going to raise up a nation that would go out and accomplish this blessing to all the other nations, so that the Jews would bring a light to the Gentiles, he made it clear that that blessing would come forth, in the words of Genesis 15, from his own loins, which was why Isaac was important, because he was the miraculous child of promise. And then Jacob, and then the 12 sons, and then we have the tribes. And it's the lineage, it's the nation that God had purposed to work through to accomplish great things. Now, the nation wasn't always cooperative. That's clear. And they went from one extreme, idolatry, to another extreme, isolationism, and that's what Jesus confronted in his time, even with his own disciples, this kind of bigotry towards Gentiles. Nevertheless, the profusion of promises in the Old Testament regarding what is clearly national Israel, and the writers seem to intend that, and the readers could read nothing else, seems to guarantee or warranty the fulfillment of those promises sometime in the future. A resurgence of national Israel and in a place for national Israel in the worldwide geopolitical scene, in which they, as a nation, then are a light to all the rest of the nations. This hasn't happened yet, but if I read Paul correctly towards the end of Romans, he says, God has not abandoned Israel. He says, I too am a Jew. The first century church was largely, at least initially, Jews that had believed in their Messiah. And there will be a time when, as he puts it, all Israel will be saved. And here I think he means that characteristically, the Jews will turn to their Messiah, where now characteristically they do not. Once the fullness of Gentiles is brought in, then there will be a refocus on the issue of national Israel and those Jews that identify themselves with the nation of Israel. And then, and possibly in the millennial kingdom, and I haven't worked all this out, is when the geopolitical promises voiced over and over and over and over by the Hebrew prophets will be fulfilled just as the Jews expected them to be. And so if that is a reasonable point of view, if that is a sound way of looking at the text, then we need to maintain some kind of distinction between national Israel and the church, which does include Jewish believers. And therefore, we then are affirming the hinge-pin issue of dispensationalism. And these are the reasons why I'm some kind of dispensationalist and not holding to covenant theology, which, among other things, denies that distinction.
Okay, I found that somewhat confusing. So he is a dispensationalist. It sounds like he was also a premillennialist. He was talking about things happening in the millennial kingdom. Made it sound like those things are not happening right now, so that would be premillennial. So he's a premillennial dispensationalist, where I believe that I am a amillennial covenant theologian. Covenant theology, amillennialism. Man, I feel like we need to do one more. Can we just get one more for just covenant theology? What is dispensationalism, and is it biblical? Question that stops Christians in their tracks. What is covenant theology? Here we go.
Hi, this is Justin, and I am answering the question, what is covenant theology? Just a quick disclaimer before I even get going. This is a massive topic. And so what I'm about to do is a 30,000-foot flyover in just a few minutes. I hope it's helpful to you. Covenant theology is much more than simply believing that there are covenants in the Bible or that God works through them somehow. Covenant theology is a framework that's revealed in Scripture through which we understand and interpret the entire Bible. And it's a framework that God works particularly and uniquely through in order to accomplish salvation. The three fundamental elements of covenant theology are the covenant of redemption, the covenant of works, and the covenant of grace. The covenant of redemption is made in eternity past before the world began amongst the persons of the Godhead. They covenant together to save a people from the mass of fallen humanity. And in particular, the Father and the Son covenant together to save the elect through the work of God the Son, who would take on flesh to accomplish that redemption. The covenant of works is a conditional covenant that God makes with man. And as the name implies, it is conditioned upon what we do. If man keeps the conditions of the covenant, if he obeys them perfectly and doesn't violate them at all, then he can stand on his own merit before God and is in right relationship with him. God makes this covenant with Adam in the Garden of Eden. Adam is given things that he is to do, and he is given a prohibition that he is not to eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And we know that Adam transgressed the conditions of that covenant, resulting in punishment and judgment. Namely, he plunged himself and all of his posterity into ruin. It's important to note that the covenant of works is revealed in other places in Scripture than just in the Garden of Eden. For example, at Theocast, we understand that the Mosaic Law in the Mosaic covenant is a reissuing of the covenant of works, not formally, but with respect to its requirements. And of course, there's the gracious provision of the sacrificial system revealed in the Mosaic covenant as well. The covenant of works, though, represents what God requires of us in order to stand before him and be in right relationship to him. And it is a conditional covenant. The covenant of grace, on the other hand, is an unconditional covenant. It's an unconditional promise that God makes to his people that is not based upon anything that they do, but is based completely upon what the Messiah does for them. And it is to be received by faith, grounded in God's grace. The covenant of grace is promised in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15, where God says there's a Redeemer who will come to crush the head of the serpent. And it is revealed more and more throughout the Old Testament. And we finally see the covenant of grace established and accomplished in Christ in the new covenant. A simple way, I think, to understand covenant theology is this: Jesus Christ fulfills the covenant of works in the covenant of grace in order to accomplish the covenant of redemption. So Jesus fulfills all of God's conditions and requirements for righteousness and forgiveness and the like. It is counted to his people by grace through faith, that's the covenant of grace, in order that they might be saved, covenant of redemption. Something for you to know is that we plan to produce more content on covenant theology in the coming weeks and months. Some of that will be audio content, and then some of that we hope will be written content.
Okay, well then that takes me back to dispensationalist theology. Yeah, finding this a little bit confusing. I definitely hammered out my position on the millennium. I know about preterism. I'm just kind of finding this whole covenant theology versus dispensationalist theology just a little bit confusing. I've gone over it like countless times. This is probably one of the final points that I just need a little bit of hammering out with. I find it a little bit confusing. As far as like the mass conversion of Jews, my take on it is like, let's just not assume it's going to happen. Let's just, if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. That's my take on a lot of things, trying to figure out all these major points. It's definitely not something that should keep Christians apart from each other. Jesus was a Jew. I think for that reason I cannot support Christianity. Well, that is a very low IQ take, my friend. This idea that everything about Jews is always bad all the time, you're going to have to get over that, buddy. There's more to the story. Anyway, guys, I'm looking forward to carving up the pumpkin tonight. I'm going to be making chicken and rice for dinner. So I'm going to get some chores done off stream after the podcast, and then probably anywhere from half an hour to an hour, we will get it cracking for the pumpkin carving stream. God bless you, my friends. Thanks for being here. And Friday, Dick Cheney and the Pentagon. Let's get it. God bless you, friends. I will see you